Today, we're going to talk about the 13 reasons that your career return is failing.
And reason number one is that you don't have a vision. Now, here's what we know as women who work with hundreds of caregivers from all over the country.
Yep.
It is that often you become the visionary for everyone in your orbit, and you stop being the visionary of your own life. That's a very dangerous thing. And it's one of the biggest roadblocks for a good, successful return to work. So you have to carve out time in your schedule to really think about, where do I want to go? How do I want this to feel? Vision is often about that feeling that you want at the end of the journey. So you're going to give yourself time to do that. Carve out a vision for yourself.
That's right.
Yeah.
After you have the vision, second is you don't have a plan.
Right.
So you can have this is where I want to go. But if you haven't mapped out the steps in the process, and there are many, you'll never get there. So sitting down, carving out that time to write down the steps in that process and how you're going to get there is essential.
Right. And then that brings us to number 3, which is a big roadblock for many people. And that's just, you lack confidence. Now, listen, here's what we get. Even just a brief pause of being out of the workforce can make your confidence dip. We get that. But not putting yourself out there, not taking the chance, not feeling the vulnerability of the journey is going to keep you stuck. So you have to push yourself. And as you push yourself, guess what starts to happen? Your confidence grows. So you have to get yourself back out there if you want to grow that confidence back for yourself.
That's right. Yeah. Number 4 is to know who you are. You can't pitch yourself if you don't know your brand. And your brand is your skills, your talents, your expertise, your experience, your licensure, your education, and those things that you've learned and acquired during your career break. Really understanding all of those things is essential for getting back into the workplace.
Yeah, so is number 5, which is to know your audience. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, if you don't know who you're talking to, if you don't know that job that you want or the hiring manager you're trying to attract, you'll never get there. So it's knowing your brand and then knowing how you want to pitch yourself to catch their attention.
Yeah. You know, and this brings us to number 6, and that is you don't have the right tribe. Building a support system around you is critical when it comes to the return to work journey. And you want to have the right people around you. You don't want people that are going to hold you back or create more obstacles for you. You want people that are going to cheerlead you and pick you up as you maybe fail in different spaces and places on this journey. But you also want to choose people that are a part of this tribe that are going to give you hard truths. They're not just going to blow sunshine at you all day. They are going to give you those hard truths that are going to allow you to grow, get better, stronger, and land that job you really want.
And the next piece is right up your alley, that mindset piece, right?
Right.
So important.
That mindset can be a huge obstacle that you have to overcome. Often it's, you know, I can't return to work because I don't have that perfect resume or I'm not ready enough. And that is just your perfectionist who you're going to need to tuck in a closet somewhere in your house and shut the door on this journey that is running you. Don't allow her to run you. Stop her in her tracks and just keep yourself moving forward. It could even be some of the people pleasing that you're doing. You know, it is a job to get a job. And if you are so busy taking care of everyone else and not allowing space and pleasing everyone else around you and not allowing space for you to do this return to work journey, it's going to hold you back. So you're going to have to work through these mindsets. Number 1, you have to identify that you're even letting them run you. And number 2, you have to navigate around them when they show up.
You know, one of the mindsets that is really problem, this takes us to number 8, is that you don't believe you have a whole lot of value because you're not accounting for those years that you've been out of work. So number 8 is making sure that many of you haven't accounted for that time, that career gap effectively on your resume. And the first step is to really give yourself permission to say that I was a president of the PTO and this is what I did, or to say that I was the editor of the church newsletter and this is what I did, and then communicating it in a compelling way so that I as a hiring manager can see the value and the skill in that particular activity.
Right, which is so related to number 9, which is you haven't built or tapped into a network. So talk about that.
I think a lot of women who've taken career gaps, especially if they've taken more than a few years, they feel like they have no network. Well, first of all, you have your old network. They're still there. I mean, I still hear from people I worked with 25 years ago, and it's like, we just pick up where we left off.
Right, and LinkedIn, like what better way to connect with people?
It's so easy, social media or even the business social media of LinkedIn. So tapping into that old network and talking to old colleagues, reconnecting with old clients, but you have this ready network right here in front of you. It's the people in your family, in your neighborhood, your friends. It's the people you volunteer with. It's the people who really value you as the pillar of your community that you are. Making sure that all of those people know that you are looking to go back to work.
Right.
They're going to be a great source of connections for you when you're ready to start interviewing.
Right. And if you want to land a job, here's what not to do. Number 10, which is you're only applying online.
So just mathematically, it makes no sense. You have about a 10% chance.
Yeah.
Listen to
10%.
that. 10% chance of getting a job by applying online. And these are just very common statistics that are well vetted. The general population is 20 to 25%. That requires you to have an ungapped resume with very conventional experience, a traditional trajectory, no gaps, no pivots, no hops, and you don't have that. That's why you're talking to us. So you, by virtue of your more interesting resume, have about a 10% chance of landing a job by applying online. So why on earth would you put your time there?
Right.
But you probably are.
Right. And that brings us to number 11, which is you don't know your stories and you're not memorable on an interview. It's a really important thing that happens.
Well, it happens because as an interviewer or someone who worked in the field, we're interviewing, especially nowadays, thousands of people a year. And, I may really like you as a candidate, but I have 10 people I'm interviewing after you. You've got to do something to make me remember you.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember you if you tell me a great story that shows me how you're good under pressure, far more than I'll remember if you say, Susan, I'm really good under pressure.
Right.
So it's knowing your stories and practicing them and telling them well so that I remember you tomorrow, next week, when I start filling those jobs.
Right. I love how you always say, show them who you are. Don't tell them who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So number 12 is you're thrown off by objections about your gaps. We talked a little bit about filling that gap, but this is about the objections that come up when someone questions.
Yeah, it's about being prepared for your interview. If you think you're going to go into an interview and no one's going to mention the fact that you've worked since 2006, you're fooling yourself. So you should be prepared to handle that. You should be prepared for interview questions about your age. Again, they're not going to say how old you are, but they're going to ask questions about, how digitally savvy are you? How long has it been since you've used technology? You might get questions about your pivot. How relevant are your skills if you're trying to go from X to Y? If you know these things about yourself, you have to be prepared for those on the interview. You have to be prepared for turning what that interviewer may see as a liability into an asset.
Right. So number 13 is you are not asking for the job. And we see this time and time again,
always,
where you land the interview, you make it all the way through the process, but then you're not asking for the job. So talk about that.
It's really important to close out the interview. You've invested a lot of time in the process, and your payback is getting some information from them. And you're not just looking for information about, who's your competitor and how happy are your employees. You want the only information you really need is, am I going to be invited back? So ask that question, and in whatever way is comfortable for you. Ask them if they're going to recommend you for that next interview. Ask them if they're going to interview or recommend you for that next step in the process, or potentially for the job. That's what you want to know. And that will establish you as someone who's confident, as someone who knows how to negotiate shrewdly, because regardless of the job that you're going for, companies want to hire people who are confident and know how to negotiate. Everyone does it in every job. This is your chance. This is your playground to show that.
Right. So all of this might feel a little overwhelming.
Especially that last one.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do have questions, please pop them in the comments. We answer all of the questions that are asked. You can also visit our website and you can learn about the courses that we offer. If you liked what you saw today, you can subscribe and hit that alert button so you can get the new content that comes out each week.
And we thank you for joining us today.
Yes.